Hey there, hi there, hello there. It's Jeff Cutter Diamond welcoming you to yet another Cutter Top 10 video to do with the 2026 World Cup. This is the second last 2026 World Cup video. And today we'll be looking at the top 10 games that happened from the final till the Sweet 16. So from the round of 16 and then the quarters, semis, finals, and third place. Let's pick the top 10 games from that. I already did a top 10 games of the round of 32 and I will link it in the description below. However, we look at the top 10 games from the round of 16 onwards because since 1998, the knockout round was always the round of 16, then quarter semis, finals, and of course the third place game. But now with the 48 team thing, it went round 32, Sweet 16 onwards. And rumors circulating that we will be up to 64 teams by 2030. Kind of pathetic, don't you think? Kind of ruins the game, if you will. But anyway, we're going to be looking at the top 10 games from the round of 16. I know you'll be hating on this, but the number one has to be the final. The final is always number one. It's always the best game. Honestly, I would probably put it, if I were to do something, I'd probably put it like in the top five, but not that high. There is one honorable mention, and the honorable mention is England's win over Norway in the quarterfinals. Not because England won, because I'm a little biased with the three lines on my shirt. But the fact is, Erling Haaland with a terrible shove in the penalty area once the corner kick was taken, and Norway thought they had that 2-1 lead, and they failed. So that's what happened. But anyway, let's look at the top 10. Why don't we? All right, number 10 is the quarterfinal between Argentina and Switzerland, and how Argentina did an escape act. So we do. So the round of 32. Um, saw Argentina beat Cabo Verde in extra time and escaping. And then the round of 16, we saw their game against Egypt, which we will talk about later. But the fact of the matter is that in the quarterfinals, Argentina seemed to do another Houdini act. There was a controversy because Switzerland had a guy sent off for a red card for supposedly diving and all that, and it looked a little dramatic. So they basically gave the red card to the Swiss player and all that. 1-1 tie after 90 minutes, and then they went to extra time. Argentina scored twice to make it 3-1, and they escaped. So I feel bad for Switzerland and all that, but them's the breaks. All that. And speaking of Switzerland, they actually make number 9. Switzerland's penalty kicks win over Colombia in the round of 16 in the last game held in Canada. So, of course, as you should know, Canada, US, and Mexico all hosted games within the World Cup. Canada and Mexico got a couple of knockout games and all that. The big knockout, the last Canadian game before the quarterfinals, because the quarterfinals, semis, and finals were all in the US, had Switzerland take on Colombia. Switzerland won Group B, and that was supposed to be set up for Canada to win so that Canada could play their round of 32 and, if necessary, the round of 16 games on home turf. But Switzerland ruined it for them. Anyhow, Switzerland, I can't remember who they beat in the round of 32, but no, it was Algeria. That's right. It was Algeria. Colombia came back. They had a tight 1-0 game in the round of 32, but yeah, Colombia took on Switzerland, and it looked tight. I mean, you saw a lot of yellow in the stands at Vancouver's BC Place Stadium. Everyone thought Colombia was going to beat Switzerland and get to the quarterfinals. Unfortunately, to face Argentina, but unfortunately, though, the Swiss pulled one out of the hat, winning on penalty kicks, and it was just amazing to see them in their first quarterfinals in a long, long time. 1954, I think, was the last time they went to the quarterfinals. Can't remember. Because Switzerland was always known as being unlucky. Number 8 is Spain in the round of 16 against Portugal 1-0. Spain and Portugal are eternal rivals. It's kind of like Canada and the United States. It's like England and Scotland. It's like France and Germany. They always have battles. But the fact of the matter is, Spain and Portugal, strangely enough, in 2030, the next World Cup, get to co-host a lot of action, including with Morocco. And then there's some South American matchups. But yeah, Spain and Portugal, always internal rivals and all that. That 3-3 tie in 2018 was El Clasico. Unfortunately for Spain and Portugal, there was actually no score late until a lucky shot by Miguel Moreno, a header, went into the net. Spain beat Portugal in the round of 16. And guess what? Portugal were out, and CR7's World Cup career ended in the round of 16. I know they could have done better. Well, remember, in the round of 32, they took down Croatia. It was a tight one. Unfortunately for Portugal, they were losing to Spain. Okay. Number 7 is the controversy between U.S. and Belgium round of 16. So the round of 16, Belgium survived Senegal. They were down 2-0 and then scored twice, and then they scored seconds at a time. And the Americans beat Bosnia Herzegovina. Ironically, the U.S.'s round of 32 game was actually on Canada Day, whereas Canada's round of 16 game against Morocco was on U.S. Independence Day. How weird is that? Poor Mexico, their Independence Day is May. Oh my. Anyway, the U.S. had a problem. They had this guy named Balogun who actually scored a key goal, but then got red carded for some kind of tackle. So he was out of luck. However, rumors were circulating that Balogun's red card would be questioned by Donald Trump himself and to General Infantile. President Infantile. But the fact of the matter is that yeah, Trump said he did talk to them about the red card, and then the red card got suspended, meaning that Balogun could play against Belgium. But the joke was on the Americans, as the controversy actually didn't help matters. Belgium crushed the Americans 4-1, and the U.S. fell in the round of 16. If it also helps, Mexico and Canada also fell in the round of 16, so no host got to the quarterfinals. Number 6 is Spain's 2-1 win over Belgium in the quarterfinals, thanks to a goalie change in a ball spill. Anyway, so Spain, after beating Portugal, will now have to take on Belgium. It was basically two countries well known for their overratedness and underachieving ways. So, what can you do? I know. Have a game. So anyway, Spain was actually tight with Belgium at 1-1. Unfortunately, Belgium star goalie Thibaut Courtois, who played for Arsenal and a few other teams, injured himself. So they had to go with a backup goalie. I think he's the backup for Man U. But anyhow, he was in that. And then unfortunately, though, there was a shot. He saved it, but he spilled it, meaning he didn't control the ball. And our old friend Miguel Moreno came popping through and scored and made it 2-1. And Spain beat Belgium to move on to the semifinals, where they would take care of France 2-0. I know this should be in the top 10, but I just didn't find anything funny lying about this. Number 5 is Norway's shock win over Belgium round of 16. Now, Norway is not really known as a soccer nation. Sure, they had some luck in it. In 94, they actually knocked out England in their chance to make the World Cup. However, Norway, it was like almost no way. They would take on Belgium, who were a very strong team. Brazil always makes it through. I mean, come on. They have the most Stanley Cups, FIFA World Cups with 5. Norwegians were hoping for things. And Norway had an ace up their sleeve. They had Erling Haaland, one of the best strikers for Man City. Fuck that. I'm a Man U fan. But anyhow, Brazil actually had a penalty kick, a penalty shot to make it 1-0. And somehow, in some way, the Norwegian goalie saved it. It was not Vinny Jr. who took it because he was basically the big boy for Brazil with Neymar out of luck. Unfortunately, though, Norway would score. I think Haaland scored a brace or 2 goals. They made 2-0, and then Brazil brought Neymar onto the field, and he scored a late penalty, but it didn't matter. Norway shocked Brazil 2-1. It was like, what the hell? Yes, Norway beat Brazil in '98 as well, but this was more shocking. It got them to the quarterfinals against England. It would have been England-Brazil quarterfinals like I predicted. No way. No how. Number 4 is Mexico versus England in the round of 16. This was big because Mexico got to stay home at Azteca, win the round of 32, and then get entertained for the round of 16. And England, wouldn't you know it, won the group, and then England had to take care of DR Congo after losing 1-0 to those guys. They fortunately won. So it was Mexico-England on a Sunday night. It actually was delayed an hour due to a rain problem. They actually thought about putting the game at 2 o'clock Eastern time on the Sunday. but both teams complained, saying that it just wouldn't work out and with the hot heat. So they played it. It was a good game and all that. Jude Bellingham scoring 2 goals within 2+ minutes of each other to make it 2-0 England. Mexico would come close. England would score a Harry Kane penalty or follow walking stick, as Bill puts it. And then Mexico tied it on. Well, they scored a penalty of their own, 3-2. Unfortunately, there was some argy-bargy. I think there was a red card or two. It was tight. And everyone made the big fact that England would never win at Azteca because Mexico has only lost twice at Azteca since 1966 when it was built. And those two were actually minnows, Costa Rica and Honduras. It was like, how the hell do they everyone but lost once to Costa Rica and Honduras at Azteca? Well, England became the first non North American team to win at Azteca against the Mexican national team. So, number 3 is Argentina England in the semifinals. I know number 2 should be number 3 and number 3 number 2, but I'm making it number 3. It's not for sour grapes because England fell in the semifinals, but the fact of the matter is I think that number 2 is number 2 for a reason. Argentina, after taking out Switzerland in the number 10 game, then went on to face England. England, of course, took care of things against Norway with Holland's push. So Argentina, England. Of course, after watching France, Spain, I was anticipating England to beat Argentina. Argentina to beat England because it's Leo Messi. They wanted Messi in the final, and England would always fucks up. However, England scored 1-0, and it was like party time. I was actually at the Chuck's Roadhouse, or that's kind of a bar and grill and all that, close to where I work at Canadian Tire because, well, it was right by Canadian Tire. So I had my England shirt on. So, of course, there were English fans and Argentine fans and all that. Basically, the England fans were singing, "It's coming home, it's coming home, football's coming home." Of course, in Canada, we call it soccer. But then England did terrible tactics. They decided to defend. They couldn't counterattack for the life of them. And then Argentina scored twice. Messi didn't score twice. Messi made up a big assist. And England were 5 freaking minutes away from going to the final. And it would have been a shock. England, Spain. And it was like, England's going to get revenge for Euro 2024. Beat Spain. And I'll be one happy camper. But no. It had to happen that way. England, I kind of had a hunch England was going to lose, but freaking the way they lost. And the worst part is Thomas Tuchel, the England manager, did not learn from freaking Southgate. Because Southgate was always known for taking the lead and then putting defensive tactics, which kind of ticked off everyone for counterattacking, which cost England in the 2020 and 2024 Euro finals. Like, did we not learn from this? Well, England did win third against France, but basically both teams didn't really want to play it. England didn't play Harry Kane. France played Mbappe. I was actually shocked. But yeah, England beat France 6-4. It was just basically a glorified exhibition game in my mind, even though that a few $1 million here and there. But anyhow, Argentina is part of number 2, and that was the round of 16 against Egypt. So on July the 7th, about 2 weeks ago, as I'm taping this, Argentina would take on Egypt. Just an hour before game time, I actually had to go to the dentist. So I actually had to miss work, which I didn't like. But yeah, I went to the dentist to get a tooth cleared up. Listen, see? This thing is not filled. This tooth was not filled. I had to have this tooth filled in. And yeah, I am missing 2 front teeth. I am aware of that. Well, not, and I'm basically thinking in December, all I want for Christmas is my 2 front teeth. Actually, I asked if I should get my front teeth filled, and they said, yeah, it might happen soon enough, but I like it the way it is. Nevertheless, yeah, I was at the dentist, and then I kind of missed the first 7 minutes of Argentina Egypt. I managed to get home in time for the game. I didn't miss too much. It was 0-0 at the half. I was like, what the heck? And then Egypt scored to make it 2-0. I was like, are we going to see one of the greatest upsets ever? And for me to have to redo a top 10 about the top 10 knockout upsets of all time. I was thinking that. And then all of a sudden, Argentina scored. It was basically when Egypt was up 2-0, Argentina still seemed like they were laissez-faire or just basically relaxed a little too much. And of course, it's Argentina. What do you expect? They ended up beating Egypt 3-2. Egypt had it. We almost had Mo Salah in the quarterfinals. Egypt would have played Switzerland in the quarterfinals. It was basically going to be, I think it would have been Switzerland who would have taken out Egypt, and maybe England takes out Switzerland to get to the final, but lose to Spain. That's just how I feel. But of course, numero uno is Spain Argentina in the final. It has to be number one because it's the freaking World Cup final. I mean, yeah, it was a 1-0 game. Yeah, it went to extra time. Yeah, there's some bad stuff about it. But the fact of the matter is, it was actually a good final for the Razzmatazz. The Americans put on a great show. That damn halftime show didn't happen. I just basically taped ASG Golf during the halftime show. And like, I didn't really care about halftime shows. Halftime shows are for the Super Bowl, not the fucking World Cup. Sorry, that's how I feel. But anyway, yeah, it was tight 0-0. But then when you look at the graphics, and of course, the great team of Peter Drury and Alan Smith commenting for FIFA things, well, I was watching on CTV in the Canadian network. But yeah, it was 0-0. It was like, and then Argentina had no shots on target. I was like, how the hell do you think they're going to win the game? It's the old Wayne Gretzky addict. You missed 100% of the shots you don't take. And of course, you got to take your shots. I mean, you could try to drill it at the goalie and see if Unai Simon would bobble it. Unai Simon had one of the best tournaments around. He only conceded once, and that was to Belgium. He gave up 0 goals in the group stage and only 1 goal in the knockout stages, and that was to Belgium. That shows how freaking good he was. And Emilio Martinez, the Argentine goalie, he was no slouch. He was the best goalie of the last World Cup. Of course, terrible salute notwithstanding. No, it was not the Nazi salute. But anyhow, yeah, it was a great job. I mean, both goals. Emilio Martinez had to make many great saves, and then Ferrol Torres came in off the bench, number 7 for Spain, scored a goal, and that was again another Spanish number 7 with F. Torres won the title. For Ferrol Torres in 2026, Fernando Torres in 2010. I don't think they're related. And it was just amazing to see all that. And of course, Torres became the first substitute to score a goal since Gotza in the World Cup final since Gotza in 2014. But yeah, it was a good final and all that. And Donald Trump trying to put himself into the winning picture. I kind of figured he was trying to do his fucking ego. But the Spanish people photoshopped him out of the photo. Like, come on. You really think people don't photoshop people in other photos? Anyway, Spain won. Viva España. And the crazy thing is, I picked Spain versus Argentina. When I did my predictions a month ago, I said Spain would probably beat Argentina. Of course, I was dealing with some throat problems, so I couldn't really speak that much. But yeah, I said Spain was going to beat Argentina. I was like, nah, EA Sports might be right. They might say Spain. And EA Sports, even though they're under pressure with the microtransactions for many of their games, they actually predicted it right. So they're probably going to have an ego trip like Trump. Sorry, that's just my opinion. I'm Jeff Diamond, a dude.